Welcome to another episode of the Justice podcast. This time it's holiday related, and today I'm here with the most frequent appearer of the show. Appear not being a proper word, but anyways, Tobs.
I hope people are not growing tired of me. Happy holidays, and well, let's start off. What are the topics for today, ladies and gentlemen?
Well, my name may not be ladies and gentlemen, but we'll be talking about Frogger the Great Quest, Super Mario 3D Land, Spider-Man Miles Morales, and the recently released Halo Infinite. I kind of butchered that, but
Whoa.
whatever. All right. Let's read as always. Same song and dance. Frogger Request. You might have not heard of this title, but I honestly can't blame you if you haven't.
I haven't.
It's one of the first few games I got into PlayStation 2, along with, I think it was uh, Gran Turismo 3, which I would love to review, but it's just going to be about racing, and some PS1 games, mostly educational ones, and a few arcade compilations because my dad grew up with the arcades back then.
Cool.
Yep. Uh, but yeah, Frogger the Request is pretty much a reboot of sorts of the franchise because a lot of video game properties that began as arcades try to expand themselves into becoming platformers, usually in the form of either expanding the story or at least improving the gameplay to make them more than just coin operated games. That sort of mechanic has been getting outdated. Usually, it's a franchise that's already gotten itself an establishment in home consoles like Mario has no problem with this. But there are a few that
Yeah.
either expanded on their franchises like Pac-Man has, and we'll talk about Pac-Man some other time, or they'll just be like uh, was it Asteroids or Space Invaders? Yeah, Space Invaders, where uh, the game's pretty much self-explanatory, and it expands itself like in a Nintendo 64 version, but then it becomes much more reliant on nostalgic console ports for like Virtual Console and all that sort of jazz.
Yeah. Look
So
neat.
when they did the Pac-Man games for the PlayStation 1, they tried to make the games much more expansive and very well at the same time making it like the arcade. The first time they did it was with the PS1 game, He's Back Frogger or Frogger He's Back. Um, yeah, I don't know if it's meant to be called He's Back Frogger or Frogger He's Back because they didn't have much of a big name for the series, but they were pretty much like, "Hey guys, check this out, new Frogger game." But yeah, like Konami made sure that the gameplay was very faithful to the original while making it much more reliant on getting new mazes and whatnot with the
Yeah,
new
I
frogs.
found it. The name is He's Back! Frogger.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, the PS1 game was very got a lot of attention for that, but the gameplay was like kind of crappy because it was kind of difficult to work around with. Not terribly so, but it was kind of frustrating for people that wanted to, you know, not rage quit.
Yeah.
Then we went to the era where we got Swampy's Revenge, which was very much an expanded version of it. The frame rate is choppy as hell, but I will give him credit for making it a little more story based. They got to rescue the little frogs from Swampy, who's trying to make his own game. And yeah, as a result of it, it's kind of campy. It's very cartoony, but it makes sense in the context of the series. However, by the time we got to the PlayStation 2, Konami didn't want to make another game like that. So as a result, the company that made the PS1 Frogger games instead worked on not Swampy's Revenge, obviously not. Zapper. He's kind of like a
Dapper.
yeah, he's like an electric grasshopper. He has got quite of an attitude to him, but like very smug looking guy, very arrogant. I don't know what the proper words are, but he's kind of like a cool looking guy, very 90s esque. Meanwhile, Konami instead developed their own IP of sorts for the Frogger series, as a 3D platformer, kind of like what we got with Mario, um, like Crash
Okay.
Bandicoot, Spyro, etc. And we get
Yeah.
to Frogger Request, which is very different. The aesthetics are different. The world's very different. The gameplay is different as well. But does it make it good? Well, not quite, honestly. So let's
I
talk about.
mean, it sounds like a whole field of a game that I barely had any information about. And I remember some games of that format, like the frog jumping and avoiding obstacles, but no more than that. Honestly, you're mentioning titles. I'm like, wow, so many games about a fucking frog.
Yeah, and they made so many of them at the same time for like the early 2000s as well, which kind of made the series get less and less interesting.
Yeah,
But let's talk about the really bad one, The Great Quest. It starts off with
it's great.
yeah, the title itself sounds very promising. It's a very big adventurous game, very fairy tale like. Really reminds me a lot of
Yeah.
Shrek for some reason.
Shrek.
Yeah, like between the setting, the parody like tone of the game, the half cartoony, half epic feel. It definitely feels like it's a bootleg Shrek.
That's a way to put it.
Yeah, it's so goddamn weird too because it came around the same time Shrek did, but it wasn't trying to
Oh,
capitalize on Shrek's success intentionally. It's just them trying to make their own spin on Frogger, for better or worse.
yeah. I don't think they had the knowledge of their existence like reciprocally. But yeah, it probably happened because it happened.
Yep. But as for the story itself, typical fairy tale stuff. Frogger wants to get a princess after hearing that a frog indirectly saved the princess from a dragon. She kisses it and becomes a prince. So Frogger decides to wish to his fairy frog mother to get himself like a chance to rescue a princess. But the way he said it is just so goddamn ridiculous. I mean, if you ever saw the cutscene when he was like thinking about what was going on, his head was like fucking spinning around. His eyes went googly because of some weird frog arousal that he has. And this line that he
Yeah.
says, the line that he says to wish for, like when he saw a shooting star, he was like, I wish I must find the princess before I bust."
No
Yeah,
way.
that literally made him a coomer. Frog Coomer the Great Quest. It's for goddamn ridiculous.
Oh, that is definitely a Comboy Advance moment.
Yes, it is.
Well, anyways, I'm looking at pictures of the game now. You know, the Great Quest, and it looks hideous. But like there were a lot of PS2 gameplays that look bad, but this one doesn't have anything attractive to it. I don't know.
I mean, when I was a kid, I thought it was like really cool, but my standards weren't really set as well. Like, I didn't have internet access back then. Uh,
Uh,
I didn't listen to any forums. I just thought to myself, "Oh, I want this game," or my dad buys it. And I just play with it because I want to see what he's playing. At the time, I thought it was like really good
mhm.
because I was like not sure about the standards of games. And as we're about to delve into more, it's definitely the case. So
Yeah.
as we go along, Frogger tries to get himself a princess, but has to do either a few errands like collecting um, a certain object that a character wants in order to progress with a level, or go through a couple of challenges. Every once in a while, he encounters like a princess, or hears a mention of a princess, and has a parody where it's sort of like in Mario when they say "Thank you, Mario," but your princess is in another castle.
Yeah.
That is kind of a nice parody. You know, it's like, that's one of the few creative things about the writing because most of it's either just like very generic or it's either something that's kind of like disturbing or gross. Because at one point you either get something like that, like a cute little subtle reference like that, or something that sounds kind of disturbing, like "Oh, you gotta give like Bruiser some honey first," or "Oh, a stinky piggy, do you have to go to the bathroom, little fella?"
They sound exactly like that.
Yeah, that's what they sounded like in the game. It's just so fucking weird, and it doesn't stop there either. But along the way, like Frog Rider encounters like characters that are going to antagonize him, such as like Slick Willy. He pretty much has the River Princess, who's not a princess but is instead his ship. And occasionally, Frogger would encounter fairies that help guide him through these weird worlds. At one point, he gets lost in a forest, but before then, he encounters a tree full of mystery, and he fights against Mr. D, who, upon getting shot in the head or in the mask with a goober, because Frogger shoots goobers from his mouth. I don't know why.
Mm.
Like his mask reveals himself to have a bit of Frogger's face on there, but they don't elaborate on that. Is it meant to be like? Is it like okay? You might remember that sort of scene from Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
Classic. Um, Luke Skywalker seeing Darth Vader with the like his mask like blown in half, and it shows off his face right there. As sort of
Yeah.
like a warning of what he can't become. But they don't elaborate on that. They just like, oh, like that was so funny. Ah, he. Let's play hide and seek then. Says the fairy. That. By the way, the fairies look fucking stupid. I don't want to go into the aesthetics yet, but like the character designs are fucking ridiculous. But beyond that,
they they look ridiculous, ridiculously.
yep. And then after that, Frogger goes to a forest. Then he finds himself like this huge bipedal um, Sephiroth looking monster who gets shrunken down by a magic stone. And then Frogger encounters like these two mutated freaks that take him to a huge castle by a mad scientist who wants to use his legs for the metal chicken ray, which is no joke, a reference to Metal Gear Solid.
Huh. So it has plenty of references.
Yeah, the Metal Gear Solid one makes sense because, like, okay, the Mario one did as well because parodying the princesses and other castle sort of dealy. But Konami not only owns the Frogger series, but they also own Metal Gear Solid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's not the first time they have the Metal Gear series referenced in a Frogger game. In Beyond, another PS2 game that's more closer to the arcades while still having a more cartoony style to it. When you die, at one point Frogger says, "Oh, what is this? Frogger Gear Solid?" Yeah,
Damn. Almost breaking the fourth wall.
it is. But yeah, it's kind of one of those funny things about the Frogger series. They have a bit of that sort of sense of humor. Uh,
I'm surprised that a game like this is not more of a meme.
yeah, like, it definitely deserves more memes. But the closer we're gonna get, it's just like some reviewers like ripping it a new one, and of course us. Oh
Yeah.
boy, we haven't gotten to like the rest of the story yet. So at one point, Frogger like goes to this fucking challenge where he has to avoid all like the goblins. Um, they don't go back to formula, obviously, but more importantly, he has to like reclaim a castle because a kingdom was taken down by the goblins, and he has to find a princess. However, he pretty much takes on against a antagonist who we never seen in the game until now. Um, I forgot his name. Like okay. His design is very like he's very fat looking. He's very beardy. He has glasses on, but I don't know if they're meant to be sunglasses because they're silver or white. He has like a fire. His head's on fire. He's very No, I'm not going to say that word. The H word that ends with Y.
Oh,
But he's he's the industry or the general of light and industry or something like that, or light and magic. It's meant to be an ILM reference. But A, that doesn't make any fucking sense. B, how are we supposed to remember that if we don't know who he is until the end of the game?
yeah, that would make me lose focus.
Yeah, you could have literally opened the game with with like the kingdom being taken down and have like the guy end up like the main bad guy like take over everything, and then you have like this fairy frog mother show up and says, "Oh, I got to warn Frogger about this," and like she tells him, "Hey, there's this kingdom that needs your help," and Frogger says, "Like I'm willing to do it and help save this, like save the people from there." Now that in itself would have
Huh.
been much easier to like process as a story because I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm gonna have to give thanks to Nitrorad for putting further light shed into this, but they like Frogger's kind of selfish in this game.
Oh, tell me why.
Well, let's begin with the fact that he just wants to like he literally wished for him to become a prince, but as a result, the kingdom has been put into danger. It might that might have not been intentional on the
Frogger
writer's
moment.
part. Yeah, Frogger moment. Like that might not be intentional on the writer's part, but the fact that they made him this sort of fucking guy that wants to get his hands on some Princess Coochie ends up having
Yeah.
him ends up having this sort of kingdom in danger when like he could have like written it differently. So instead of that, you could just have him say like, "Oh, Frogger, we need you for this mission. You think you can save this kingdom from danger?" And he says, "I'm up for it," because he wants adventure. Like, it,
Well, I mean, it is a valid decision. It's totally fair. Let's not judge poor Frogger.
yeah. I mean, after all, he has proven himself within the first cutscene to be a Coomer, the amphibian Coomer.
Oh,
He
oh
was.
boy. How do you get better from that?
Well, it's simple. You make
Oh,
your subsequent games nothing to do with the Great Quest.
yeah,
Now,
yeah,
unfortunately,
totally.
unfortunately, I can't show off gameplay, but yeah, the gameplay is pretty shitty all around. Um, Turning itself isn't bad, but you feel like you get stuck in some instances. Uh, the attacks are okay. The frog foo is so fucking pathetic. However, like you just like it's just preset animations. You're not even fighting properly. Like, no, you're playing a fighting game or a beat 'em up. You get a text to respond with your button input.
Yeah.
You don't get that with this. As a result, it feels more like you have characters doing preset animations fighting each other in a CGI Ugandan movie.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, I already told you. I saw the CGI from it. It looks like poorly taken care of and just hideous.
yeah. Like
So,
I'll give it credit that there's a certain charm to it because it's very PS2y, but then again, there are way better games like Spyro and Crash to Insanity that look and perform way better on the PS2 than Frogger the Great Quest did.
yeah.
And it doesn't stop there either. The Goober attacks are okay, but when you want to try and fight against your enemies by moving around, like when you're strafing around in a game, you know when you're like in your third person shooter, how you have two sets of motions, either uh one that's meant for you to one control stick is meant for you to like move around front, back, left to right, with the other one sort of like your point of view and it helps you change direction.
Mm-hmm.
That's that's something that they try to do with Frogger to Request because there's a mode where you can enter where Frogger can strafe left and right to shoot at his enemies. The problem is that you can only turn left to right and you're only going in a circle instead of like moving back and front as you would in any third person shooter game.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of people say that.
So even that is messy.
Yep. Now, a lot of people say that the game itself is very inspired by Rayman 2, which is kind of funny how that turned out because um, like the gameplay between the two of them are very, very, very similar.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely bootleg Rayman 2 overall, as many people say. I mean, I suppose you
Like
gotta.
you wait, you would say it is very very similar as in a plagiarizing way, or am I confused?
Well, the gameplay itself and the aesthetics are kind of very similar. But the thing is that Rayman 2 has its own story compared to Frogger Great Quest. Plus,
Hmm.
at least Rayman is a genuine character, not a Coomer. Oh boy.
Eh, leave my leave my boy Frogger alone. He just wanted to bust.
Oh my fucking god, that line. But yeah, moving on. The graphics are a mixed bag. They're very much in the same front of like a high quality PS1 game, but with a high frame rate. The colors are far too
Mm-hmm.
saturated at times, but the environments I think are kind of like either good or bad. Like in the
Uh
open
huh.
world, like okay, okay, something like the swamp like levels. Okay, that's understandable. You don't not too much to interact with. The town level, you have very few NPCs to interact with for most of the town levels.
Oh, okay.
The boat level is probably the coolest one because it feels like this sort of a cool ship to be in. But again, you have very few NPCs to talk with, and it's especially worse when there's like no proper isolation to it with like between the enemies and your NPCs. Like they're all just going to be NPCs. Their enemies are going to attack you anyhow, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
And to make matters worse, uh, half of the time you can't even revisit these levels. In fact, you can't even like do any replays at all.
Dude, that's very atypical for a game,
Yeah, I mean,
especially a game of those days, because nowadays the games are more dynamic for the sake of the story and the cinematic and shit. But
yeah,
back then, it was like the replaying stuff is what made it charming. That is weird.
yeah, it is. Like Mario 64 lets you revisit any level you have, even if you've already gotten the star.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but Frogger Great Quest, like, there's no option to replay a level. I mean, you have to go forward, and when you complete the game, guess what? You can only look at this fucking character images instead, and that fucking sucks too
Yeah.
because some of the levels aren't that bad. Like, I like the castle level; it feels very cool. Either that, or you have or you might have music that's actually quite nice to listen to. Because honestly, the music is the best part of the game. Um,
Huh.
the opening menu has awesome orchestrate music to it. It feels very cinematic in a way, very mysterious, very Tim Burton-y, if that makes sense. Or yeah, Danny Elfman, Tim Burton-y.
Hmm.
It's like this new world you've ever been into that is now discovered to you as an outsider, and it changes everything.
Yeah.
But it's kind of amusing too because it's like so different from the kind of music that the previous games had on the PS1.
Yeah.
Uh, Either way, kind of funny how it turned out. But honestly, um, I am just better off listening to the music nowadays because it's all on YouTube. Because like it's good stuff, but it deserves a much better game than it currently has. So, with all that said, why would I bring up this like mediocre video game? Well, like I said before, I grew up with Frogger the Great Quest as one of the games that got into PS2, and honestly, as much as I think it's a shitty game with like mediocre graphics, annoying voice acting, um, and poor programming all around, there's just something about it that's hard to deny its importance in helping me get into video games even more.
What is it?
It's like how much it like not only helped me with my imagination, but it also helped bridge me to better games all around. Like if it wasn't for this
Uh-huh.
game, I probably wouldn't have as someone that plays video games every once in a while. Um I probably wouldn't have gotten myself into like Mario or Pac-Man or Sonic or like Halo or all these other guys and gals.
Yeah. Wow. So you would say that Frogger Comer was necessary for your
Commer.
life as a video game player.
Yeah.
He was part of your history. What a lovely dude.
Yeah, as shitty as the game itself was, it helped me get into video games. And even if I wasn't playing that game, I would always play Gran Turismo 3 or like those educational like Winnie the Pooh and Blue's Clues games on the PS1.
Yeah.
I'd also play the Namco Museum. Like, remember when they used to have put like the Namco games on the PlayStation?
Yeah.
And there's like this museum you could walk into.
Mm-hmm.
I had the first volume only because my dad was only like a Pac-Man Galaga guy. Um,
Respectable.
yeah, and that pretty much like got me into the Pac-Man series. And I just found out that like I knew who Pac-Man was before I even knew Mario and Sonic.
Cool.
Like my
I mean,
relatives had Nintendo
Pac-Man
consoles.
would be more of a classic than Mario because he didn't come first.
Yeah, like Pac-Man came first before Mario did, only by 1 year. Well, one
Only
franchise has
one
had,
year.
yeah, 1980
Huh.
for our pellet eating friend, and 1981 for our plumber hero.
Huh. Cool.
It is, but yeah, like Frogger definitely helped bring in a new sort of like interest I have with video games, and yeah, maybe another timeline. It probably would have been the Xbox that I got, and I probably would have gone like Halo Combat Evolved at a young age, or hell, I probably got a Nintendo console. I probably would have gotten myself either Pikmin or Luigi's Mansion. So, well, it might have seemed like I might have gotten myself a shitty game. At least said shitty game helped me get into video games at a young age, and I've played much better ones since then.
So yeah, again, Frogger was necessary to fall in love even more and have like a more variety of or a more diverse perception of video games. Like you wouldn't have loved Mario or Sonic or all the games that came after without Frogger.
Yeah, if it wasn't for that game specifically, I wouldn't have been like the a person that likes video games in the sort of timeline that we're in. Earth One, basically.
Yeah. So you would could you confirm that Frogger is part of the chain of events that caused 9/11?
Um, I have no fucking idea uh, because currently as we speak, like Frogger the Great Quest is currently instead being known for the 2003 war conflict that was going on. You know, the one that resulted in some cartoons that changed context. Actually, no,
Whoa.
wait. Frogger was known for like actually being responsible for pulling the scene from SpongeBob where Squidward gets himself set on fire when he tried to break into the Krusty Krab.
Damn. Frogger is part of. our culture.
He sure is. By the way, before we move on, I heard there's like this like game on Peacock, where it's based on the arcade game, but it's like a game show.
Mhm.
Sounds fucking weird. Looks like something they promote for Pixels. Remember that movie? I don't.
Yeah. Oh, that was, sorry for this blatant use of the word, but that was cancer.
Pretty much.
Uh,
But let's cleanse ourselves with Super Mario 3D Land. I'm gonna be
yeah.
honest. Like the Nintendo 3DS was very had a very like interesting start compared to the Nintendo DS. Um, I feel like every game console normally begins with a Mario title to get people interested. Like he's up, like it's like we already know Mario at this point. He's your flagship character. He has all these video games, blah blah blah. But it's always amusing to think about
Hmm.
the sort of approach they have when it comes to promoting a game and the character that is being associated with said game. Like the Nintendo 64 started off with Super Mario 64, while the GameCube instead had its first one of its first few like launch titles be with Luigi instead.
Yeah.
What I think is amusing is the fact that the Nintendo 3DS, unlike the Nintendo DS, had its Mario title released later in the year it came out in. I think that, like Super Mario 64 DS came out in like around the same time the DS did, for the holiday season, while uh, like 3D Land came out months after the 3DS was released, and in time for Christmas when they dropped the price.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So, but like when it comes to talking about Super Mario 3D Land, it's kind of hard to like break down whether it's actually a memorable game or not because when it comes to the other Mario titles, the big like the okay, there's four main 3D Mario titles for like the casuals: 3D Land, 3D World, Galaxy and Galaxy 2, whereas the hardcore ones are 64, Sunshine, and Odyssey. What do you remember about
Mhm.
64?
What I remember about 64 is that I would play it innocently, but it was actually very cool.
What I remember it for is like the castle, you know, Mario's like
Yeah.
head in the opening, the voice clips,
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
Um,
the levels.
I mean, it was sort of like a very open world, and I don't know. There was so many variables. You could had a blast.
Yeah.
At least I had a blast.
All right. So, like, what do you remember about Sunshine?
Nothing.
Well, for me, like, I remember the new setting. It's how it's like a one huge theme. It's like very vacationy, very like it's like going to Hawaii. It's like going on a vacation. It's all summer aesthetics to it.
Hmm.
The levels, especially like the blue coins, being kind of hectic. Galaxy,
Yeah.
um, the Galaxy games were very known for their very orchestral feel to them, the anti gravity nature of the series, the spin attack. Rosalina,
Yeah.
3D World was best known for having like the return of having four playable characters at once. Now this time with the same cast from Super Mario 2, with Princess Peach being a playable character, you have the cat suit, and the levels are very HD. And Odyssey, I think it's no secret that people know Odyssey for like the ability to capture enemies and throw them around with Cappy, the open world nature. It's all
Yeah.
like those are what make Mario Odyssey memorable. But 3D Land, I can't say the same because honestly, it's kind of often forgotten by people. Does that make it a bad game? No, but I think we got to talk about what makes the game worth delving into, shall we?
Sure. Let's go.
So, this game is very much in a way similar to like a side project of sorts, where it's in a vein similar to Super Mario Land, where um, well, the name has nothing in common with like the previous game in terms of like apart from the name association with land instead of world. Like it's very
Hmm.
simple. It's like a casual Mario experience. The most apart from like the combination of 3D elements with 2D elements, where it's a 3D platforming game in the that plays like a 2D level. Um, it's a very vanilla Mario experience all around.
So it goes without any pain or glory.
Yeah, it's like very basic. It's like
Hmm.
it's like when you ask for when you want to buy like an ice cream, but you just choose plain vanilla.
Yeah, because maybe you're just wanted to pass by through time and you want vanilla, so vanilla is fine.
Yeah, Super Mario 3D Land is fine as well. I mean, the design is very good. The graphics are not too shabby. I'd say they're a step up from Super Mario 64 DS's, even though that game was very impressive on the DS already. But the thing is that um, the Nintendo DS's version of Mario 64 was already like so good because it took this then big game into a small little DS cartridge, whereas this feels
Yeah.
more like a tech demo of sorts.
Hmm.
Like some launch titles feel more like they're meant to show off like the graphic capability of a console that just came out. Luigi's Mansion, you could say a similar thing too, but at least it felt like a full-fledged title of some sorts.
Okay.
3D Land, on the other hand, feels more safe. It feels more like the kind of like game you'd experience on if you were to just go to a Nintendo demo and they just have you play the sort of gameplay, but it's not meant to be released publicly, but was only meant to showcase what the 3DS can do.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that the game is otherwise forgettable. Um, People remember it for the Tanuki suit returning, which was a big deal because it hasn't been seen again since Super Mario Bros. 3.
Shit.
Yeah, I'd say it's a pretty cool like way to delve into the game itself. And honestly, like it's cool to see a classic power return because I don't think we got that in. Well, actually, we never got ourselves the game itself in Super Mario, in like any of the 3D games or like in a new series, fucking new series. But unfortunately, people remember it for the stupid ass meltdown that PETA had.
Oh.
Yeah, PETA, being the sort of bitches they are, got super upset when they saw that like it was a game where Mario was like wearing like a Tanuki skin. They made this like really stupid flash game where you
Oh.
have to yeah, you know what it is.
Really?
Yeah, but it's like
Really?
yeah, they made this in response to Nintendo for them thinking, oh, you guys are skinning like raccoons alive. But it's like no, stupid.
What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. But like Nintendo's like, no, stupid. This is fictional. This is not real. Plus, no actual Tanukis were being skinned
Oh.
off.
Yeah, it honestly stressed me out, and it's been like maybe it was, I don't know, a lot of years ago, but it still stresses me out only hearing it. Wow. Anyways, yeah,
Yeah,
that our reality is stupid when it wants to.
exactly. Especially commonly seen when there's still people out there that support PETA. But long story short, PETA sucks dick. Mario 3D Land does not suck
Indeed.
dick, but I don't think it's going to be as much of a memorable game as its other counterparts. Um, Like it's fun to do. Like if you can bring your 3DS around and you can take it with you on your bus or when you're on lunch. Um, it's not a bad game all around. It's enjoyable. It feels like the kind of game you'd play on your mobile phone, though. You know, like not like a bootleg game, but
Mm,
more so like a vanilla Mario game that you just get on your phone because it's helpful
yeah,
enough. Because if you don't want to buy an emulator, that'll do just fine. However,
yeah.
um, it definitely isn't the best experience that you can get in the Mario series. Although you can get more fun out of it if you were to play as like if you were trying to get Luigi, because and at one point in the game, Luigi's been kidnapped and you got to rescue him. And you can do all the challenges with both him and Mario in order to get the points you need and unlock everything, or pretty much beat the entire level, 100% it.
So it has its moments of uh, distinctness or charm, but outside from that,
Yeah,
still vanilla.
yeah, it's still vanilla, especially when you compare it to like 3D World, which isn't my favorite game of the entire series. It's fun, but 3D World feels more like the complete version of 3D Land. 3D Land feels more like a tech
Yeah.
demo. Uh, kind of like when they brought in New Super Mario Bros. Me at one point during a showcase of the Nintendo Wii U or something.
Hmm.
Like people thought they're just gonna make this about like a gimmick game, right? But it was just meant to show off the
Yeah.
like the graphical quality of the Nintendo Wii U. And of course, we get ourselves the proper New Super Mario Bros. U game in the near future. Well, not near future, like afterwards. But even then, like that's just New Super Mario Bros. Wii, but in HD and with different like graphics, slightly different graphics.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, definitely kudos to 3D World for expanding on this sort of formula. 3D Land itself is all right, but it's definitely the least interesting out of the seven main 3D platformer Mario games. Whether it's put up against the Hardcore 3 or the casual or the other casual 4 editions.
I mean, if it has no more juice to talk about, um, I don't know. It sounds like a game that it's just plain. So what else can be talked about?
Yeah, honestly, like it sucks I have to talk down to it because it's not terrible, but it
No,
definitely
no, I
feels
know.
like we've seen much more interesting experiences for launch titles that are Mario related, like already Mario 64 DS. But what about other Mario titles that are interesting for the 3DS? Like for handheld experience, you probably could just get yourself New Super Mario Bros. I like the game a lot more. It's admittedly the new series is kind of like stupidly oversaturated at this point, but I like the DS version because it felt much more creative with its like aesthetics and level design.
Yeah.
Also, they have the best version of the Bowser Castle music. But yeah, that's pretty much it for New Super Mario, like fuck, new like Super Mario 3D Land. Too many Mario
Too many Super
games.
Mario.
Yeah.
We already talked about it.
Next up, it will be about Spider-Man Miles Morales, a game that I forgot we didn't
So
even review last year.
no, did you actually play this game?
Sometimes when I hang out with a mate, we usually like play with the game itself,
I
and
am like zero spoilers about it, and my brother had like a PS4, and now he sold it because economics. But I don't know. I remember playing the Spider-Man PS4 game. It was fantastic, and I was just so sad that I couldn't play the Miles Morales one. And um, who knows? I still haven't watched any gameplay. It's pretty crazy.
well, I think you wouldn't have to worry too much about like like the gameplay itself because it's pretty much like close enough to the original game, but thankfully
Huh.
they don't have to worry about um the sort of like rinse and repeat nature. It doesn't feel like a DLC game. It's more like a proper sequel of sorts, or midquel because we're getting Marvel Spider-Man 2 in a few years.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I also have to say that like the game itself manages to do a great job of making Miles a new addition because he was already there in the previous game that we got, and it's a good idea to actually make it from his perspective this time around. You know, like Miles Morales,
Totally.
um, like he's already a great character as he is. In this case, like pretty much, we already know for a fact that he's been training under Spider-Man's assistance, and um, and interestingly enough, this version doesn't have Peter Parker die. Of course not. Like we know they're going to come back in Spider-Man 2. Like most of the time, you get the sense that a version of Peter Parker dies when Miles Morales takes over as the new Spider-Man.
Yeah. But in this case, it is more like a duo. No, not a duo, but it helps get this essence of Miles not being complementary to Spider-Man, well, or
Yeah,
Peter, but more like
his own guy.
getting to have a dynamic with him at times and also being independent and individual.
Right. I mean, he has like a much smoother training process than um, his Spider Verse counterpart did, who had to learn as much as he can within a short period of time because all this responsibility was thrown onto his lap at once.
Hmm.
But yeah, um, we also get ourselves quite a few new additions, such as Prowler, and we even have like
Prowler.
yeah, and it also
Ooh.
like makes us like remember that this took place within the same sort of game that we got before. You know, they're all in the same universe and whatnot, and it's a good way of making up some proper consistency all around.
Dude, imagine how good Into Spider-Verse was that immediately I started to hear the soundtrack of. Do
Yeah,
you remember that one?
the fucking Prowler
Dude,
theme
that
is just so
that
creep, it's so
soundtrack
terrifying.
is so good, so thematically good.
It's so unique too. Like a lot of times, you got to make sure that the villain teams stand out from one another. Um, Especially considering the fact that it's certain instrumentals that make them stand out. I mean, like people know some of the elements of a Green Goblin theme, like like the drums that play in the background. Remember that scene when there were the masks
Yeah.
before Norman starts talking to himself in the mirror?
Mm-hmm.
That part of the theme stands out to me because it puts him in like this sort of like crazy setting, and while the cinematography might have been a bit campy for some, it's the music that like makes it a little more spine chilling. Whereas John Cena
Yeah.
would say it being chilling. Either way, like the Green Goblin theme is much more recognizable compared to say the Magneto theme, if there is any at all.
Yeah. Totally.
You also have like or say from Prowler, like pretty much Prowler's theme also stands out in a similar way because the instrumentals that are put into him is very fast paced, very tense music, and
Yeah.
an already extremely tense movie itself. Like Spider Verse, some may be seen as cartoony, but they ignore the sort of like fast paced tone of it. And while the theme song may not be quite presented for our Prowler here in this game, it doesn't mean that the game itself sucks at all. It's just a case of like, hey, reminds us of Spider Verse.
Yeah.
So apart from some like the new characters, we also get some returning characters like Rhino, Kingpin, and even J. Jonah Jameson showing up as well because gotta have him there. I like the fact that we get ourselves like a new setting all around. I mean, we already know Brooklyn at this point from the Spider-Man game, so why not we go with Harlem this time?
Yeah, you see that's a thing that I really dig about the whole concept of the game. Therefore, I need to play it, or at least feel like I'm playing it. Come on, I need to find like a good YouTuber and just watch all the gameplay.
Or just like the cinematic clips if you want to, like save some time. Additionally, I
Yeah,
also
that
like
too.
I also like the fact that we also have some new threats this time around, like the Tinker as well as the Roxxon Energy Corporation getting involved with the action. I mean, the underground is pretty much like this
Mm-hmm.
big ass threat, and it gives like Miles Morales both familiar foes to face off against as well as ones that he's ready to take on himself, no problem.
Miles Morales.
Yeah.
He, I haven't read like too many comics from Miles, but aside from Prowler, does he have like specific antagonists
To
that
me, like I mostly stick with like the
go?
Ultimate comics, honestly, because
Mm,
um, I think the Ultimate version of Miles is one that stands out more to me simply because of his sort of character attributes, as well as the fact that he was in a new setting. And it's funny that thinking about Miles once again in 2000 and at the time he first came out, 2010, 2011, um, like he was a much better written character and knew how to handle diversity within the Marvel universe much better than a lot of like characters we get nowadays.
yeah,
I know some of our friends think that like making a black version of an existing character that was previously white is kind of considered lazy. But if they go beyond just like a race bend and make them their own identity, works very well with me. Like you don't have to be like a Black Panther or a Storm to be a good enough character. Like I think War Machine himself is pretty cool all around. To some he may just be like the Black Iron Man, but to us, he's Rhodey.
uh-huh, yeah,
And to some, Miles Morales may be the Black Spider Man, but to us, he's Miles. He's his own guy. We know his like struggles. We know that he doesn't want to have the same responsibility, not because like he's a coward, but mostly because it's all thrown into him at once.
yeah. What I always felt, first of all, I never felt it was forced, and second of all, uh, just how the character of Miles is presented, you feel like he goes through the same, not the same struggles, but through similar struggles as Peter, and that makes him a honorable character when time passes, and you feel like he can build up to be a right character for the spider abilities and for what it represents to be Spider-Man and an icon and like a hero in New York, and specifically his um oh fuck, like
He's
what
just
was it, Harlem?
Harlem. Yeah, that's his place.
Yeah,
Either way, it's just done up so well. And it's a massive shame that we begin with something very good with Miles Morales to 2020 when we got those stupid ass new warrior designs. Safe space, snowflake, that fucking shit. Really, you know, like it's not even just the fact that like the characters are meant to go with some sort of agenda. They're goddamn inferior to Miles Morales. Like
yeah,
Miles Morales is how you do a diverse character right. He's more than just a race band Spider Man. He's his own guy. He has his own personality. Whereas the new Warriors are fucking parodies. They're fucking jokes. No one took them seriously. They were just a goddamn
yeah. To be
laughing
honest,
stock.
I think that the first time I heard about Miles Morales, I didn't even care about the race. I was just so hooked on um, his just his own kind of. No, I may sound repetitive, but his own kind of challenge as a character, and it reminded me of how fresh Spider-Man Peter Parker was back when it was just being like an origin story, the classic comics. It just gave me those vibes. So I was just, I don't know,
Exactly.
it wasn't hard to accept it. I mean, come on. I don't know why people would complain at all.
I mean, I know there are concerns people have with with the fact that at the time they thought it was just going to be like some sort of PC agenda thing, but it wasn't. I know it's funny. Marvel once said "Hey, um, we're not gonna like the main Peter Parker in the main Marvel universe is still alive." Then a few months later, they fucking have him get killed off temporarily by having him and Miles and Doctor Otto Octavius switch their brains around.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so fucking stupid. Superior Spider-Man's a weird ass comic book. I swear to God.
Ugh, dude. I would rather also avoid that talk.
Yeah, but if there's one thing I can complain about with the game, like we already know that the character's great, the gameplay that we have is great. I like the new suits that we have. Like the 2018 Spider Verse suit was awesome, and they were able to do a good tribute with Chadwick Boseman. Um, Black Panther's actor, who unfortunately passed away back in 2020. But if there's one
Yeah.
problem I have with the game, just one, why did you redesign Peter Parker?
Oh, now that he looked more like Tom Holland, and he looked like he had a face, a more punchable face this time. Yeah,
Yeah, he looked like he was gonna cry. His and Yuri's
Tom
voice
Holland.
doesn't go well with him.
Oh, sorry, man. This is out of context, but did No Way Home convince you to like more Tom Holland? But because it was not for me, and it is kind of related to how it is still
Yeah,
trying to be forced into the icon, oh, the face for
yeah.
Spider-Man, but I just can't swallow it. I don't want to chew it, and I can't swallow it.
All right. I know we're gonna review No Way Home next episode because there are some things that I do want to talk about it more than I would with Black Widow or Shang Chi or even the
Oh
Eternals.
yeah, I think we could make a whole episode about it, to be honest, because it is not only talking about No Way Home, it is also talking about the past and the future.
Yeah, we'll see what happens though, but I'll keep you updated on that.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
that being said, though, yeah, putting in Tom Holland's face on the iconography of Spider-Man is concerning to say the least, because Disney did a similar thing with the MC with like the Avengers. You ever look at the merchandise, like the generic merchandise of the Avengers, and it's all very MCU influenced?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. It's like you have a Captain America shirt, he looks like the MCU guy. You have the Iron Man shirt, looks like a cartoon version of the MCU design. Like they try to put in like Black Widow and Captain Marvel in the Avengers lists, even though they've already been characters that exist, and they act like, oh, these are brand new guys never existed before, but you can treat them as if they've been around as well.
Hmm.
The MCUification
Yeah,
of Marvel Comics is bad.
I don't remember, for example, after Chovy was the success, aside from the games that went to PS2 and like it was about him, but I don't remember them forcing Toby's face into the character of Spider-Man. I don't remember. I don't know,
Yeah,
Christian Bale being forced as the face of Batman. I don't remember any of that.
yeah,
And
exactly.
in the case of Tom Holland, it's just so fucking annoying. He's everywhere. Like he shouldn't.
He's
It's like when
he's like
this will be a weird.
he's like Chris
Yeah,
Pratt. He's like the Chris Pratt,
yeah,
but while Chris Pratt's taking over Mario and Garfield, Tom
yeah.
Holland's trying to take over roles that wouldn't fit his character.
This may be a weird comparison, but it's like when a person believes to be more than an institution, for example. No, you need to prioritize your human ability and your human effort for the institution. And the same thing happens for an iconic figure for entertainment and culture, pop culture like Spider Man. You can't force your individuality into that character, and it's just plain wrong. There is a misunderstanding from the people who took that decision, to be honest.
Exactly. In the 2000s, we had ourselves different identities for Spider-Man, and we rolled with it. You had the Raimi films, you
Yeah.
had the Ultimate Comics, you had yourself the animated series from Fox Kids that was on Jetix reruns, or Spectacular Spider-Man, which was newly made from scratch while having elements from previous incarnations. You also had
Mm-hmm.
like Yeah, like you also had like two comic runs. Apart from like the Earth 616, you had the Ultimate Comics and some of the what if stuff.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, in the 2010s, it's pretty much like Earth 616 Spider Man trying to take some elements from the MCU, like they do nowadays with the rebranding. Cartoons that have been inferior to compared to what we got from the 90s and 2000s, and movies that have no clear direction of what I want to do with the character. Okay, I should mention
No,
that in
no.
terms of cartoons for the 2000s, I know there was a cartoon that was meant to be a continuation of the first movie, but at least that was the only example of them putting in Tobey Maguire's character in other media. But
Yeah, it was sort of a failure, so who cares?
yeah, but at
But
least the MTV cartoon also made sure it was its own identity at the same time, so it can be both things at once.
hmm I was just gonna mention that the representation of Tom Holland as Spider-Man in a diversity of platforms feels so inconsistent. Even even the home trilogy, it feels so inconsistent. And when they put him, or like personality wise, they project him into video game or the What If series, it just feels so out of nowhere. Like I don't believe that is Tom Holland, but I know you're telling me it is Tom Holland, and it just doesn't feel like essentially a hero to me.
Yeah,
Even though he has like the intentions and stuff, it just doesn't communicate me that shit. Why do you keep forcing me? Like you really are forcing me to believe that, and you should focus more on
the other
trying to
qualities.
get different tools to communicate it and send a positive, like a genuine message through it. But no, you just force it in every type of media, and that fucking pisses me off.
And that's the problem when it came to like redesign. Like people are going to get
Yeah.
tired of Tom Holland's incarnation. Maybe not right now because like he turned out to be much better in No Way Home, but
Mm-hmm.
but before then, people were like frustrated with his incarnation. They act like he's like the best one. In reality, he has a bunch of issues to him. Not just with the script, but also as far as his like powers are concerned, he's fucking useless. I mean, they made him like
Yeah,
it's
no.
almost like they wanted him to be reliant on the Avengers so that they won't have to worry about Sony trying to rewrite his character.
Yeah. Why didn't they do that with Andrew Garfield? With how just look at him, he's gorgeous. Why didn't you do that with him? I would have been mad right now.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset if he was in the MCU because like he would fit on all right. Um, because he has the perfect costume for the MCU. He has his perfect personality. Then again, I realized one
And
thing
he's
that
a
I should
perfect
probably.
actor.
Yeah,
Do you remember
I think we're
when
going
Andrew
off way
talked
too long
about if
about.
huh
I think we went on way too long about
when
like.
Andrew talked about that he wouldn't like his character of Spider-Man wouldn't have a good relationship with
The Avengers.
Robert Downey Jr.'s Iron Man because they're definitely incompatible. One is one goes by humility and a genuine heart, and the other is a pseudo philanthropist and shit. So I always saw that so clearly. And when Homecoming came, it fucking took me like I just couldn't stand it at all.
Yeah, and that's, my friends, is why we have an issue with the redesign. It reminds us about the problems of like forcing the influence of Tom Holland into Spider-Man. When in reality, we had a time where Spider-Man media was so diverse from each other,
Mm-hmm.
and it's sort
Yeah,
of
and don't try to tell us that we are also forcing all these connections and shit. No, they are trying to forcingly connect all this shit. So if I make a chain of problems that I had, and this is sort of like a cataclysm, just respect my view because it really is that.
and yeah, it's just all around the concern when it came to the redesign itself. On top of it, not even being that good looking of a redesign, anyhow, because the animations were not made like the model itself didn't look like it was meant for that sort of like figure. It looked out of place. It looked like a deep fake.
Yeah.
And I know people are gonna say like, what about Toby? If they did Tobey Maguire Andrew Garfield in the video game, we wouldn't be any happy either, because the game
No,
itself was
it would
designed.
also feel forced. It would feel
Yeah,
stupid.
just because we like Toby and Andrew more than Tom Holland doesn't mean we want their face to replace PS4 Spidey's face. PS4 Spidey is his own incarnation.
Yeah.
He has his
You know,
own rules, his own
I
setting.
was joking previously when I said that Andrew Garfield should be the face. Like, I just find him attractive, and that sort of is the joke. But outside from that, I wouldn't like to see Andrew everywhere, and I think that he wouldn't even like it either. He would be against it.
Yeah, he has his own incarnation of Spider-Man, much like the Insomniac guy does, much like Toby does, much like 90s animated series does, much like Tom Holland does, much like the Ultimate Comics do, much like Earth 616 does. Whew.
Mm-hmm.
And Peter B. Parker as well. But
Right.
yeah, we definitely don't wait too long about the sort of rants about like redesign as well
Yeah.
as
Let's just wrap it up and say that we both need to play and enjoy more of the Miles Morales game, but it just looks as good as the previous one,
yeah,
with the exception of the new design. And that's it.
yeah. It definitely is a great game all around. It doesn't feel like a DLC expansion. It has its own unique move set, its own unique costumes, and all around, it makes you feel like you're playing as a different character in spite of initially looking like a palette swap. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
Miles Morales is his own character. He's not just a black Spider-Man. To the casuals, he may be, but to us, he's his own identity. Although I'll never forget the
Yeah.
time they like put in the like I know like, there was in a time period when everyone was like trying to go Black Lives Matter, but ironically, when you like unlock a costume nearby the mural that says Black Lives Matter, the costume that they get looks more like the Proud Boys colors, which people describe.
I think they should change
It's
that
so.
brand to Black Lives Occasionally Matter.
But more importantly, they should have realized the fact that the irony of just unlocking a costume that's with colors that are associated with the alt right for doing something that relates to something that's like considered progressive. It's just fucking amusing. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but yeah. Apart from that little
Mm.
gag and the ugly redesign of Peter Parker, Miles Morales is a tremendous game, and we look forward to
Mm.
playing Spider-Man 2.
Yeah.
But finally,
So,
at long last, after delays and delays, we got ourselves to Halo Infinite.
okay, your time to talk. Tell me, how was
Ugh.
it?
Well, it feels weird to go from talking about just the first Halo game in like in one of the episodes from the 2000, like before the podcast had its 1 year anniversary, to then talking about its latest installment. We haven't talked about Halo 2 to 6 yet. Well, honestly, that's okay
Hmm.
because we'll get to the trilogy at some point, and we have our own thoughts on Halo 4 and as well as Guardians. But Halo Infinite itself is a triumph for 343 Industries because after the third game, I think a lot of people weren't as happy with the Halo series in terms of the story. The writing itself doesn't feel as good as the previous campaigns were, and that's especially true for Halo 5 when it came to trying to force in Locke as the new hero. People didn't like the way Master
Hmm.
Chief was written. Think well, we do continue off the events of like Guardians. We at least get ourselves into a new story this time, a more human story, as they say, but one that involves Master Chief getting back into the action and going against Cortana after the things he's done to the galaxy, as well as the Ringworld Zeta Halo.
Yeah.
I like the fact that we begin with our new pilot, who is Echo 216. I like his character a lot. You know, it's always amusing when you have a character interact with Master Chief because you usually have the stone cold badass and someone that doesn't see eye to eye with him but has to go along with him nonetheless because um, they can't do as much as he can. Echo 216 is the sort of guy that like apart from his accent, you also recognize him for his like sort of attitude at times, his temper, and that was especially true when it came to like the first tech demo we got in when it came to showing off the gameplay when when they're like in a ship and they're gonna crash, and he's like telling, "Oh, you've been kind of like a pain in the ass for me," but he decides like, "Okay, I'll stay here and wait."
Yeah.
And I like this sort of character with him. It's kind of reminiscent of when we usually have like an occasional like another Spartan hang out with Master Chief, and they have to rely on him, or um, when it comes to I guess the Arbiter, who doesn't see eye to eye with Master Chief at times, but they have to go along with each other nonetheless as they help to survive.
Hmm.
Uh, So after a time gap between Guardians and Infinite, Echo finds Master Chief. It helps him bring him back to life. Then they have to go into a ship and get what they need. As at one point he encounters a weapon after they go to see the Halo, and the weapon itself is pretty much meant to imitate Cortana, who you may recognize as the artificial intelligence. Well, do I dare say waifu of Master Chief?
Oh yeah. Oh, totally.
It turns out that that while she was able to succeed in a mission and helping with capturing Cortana for the deletion, she failed to like self delete herself and like that now is a chance to like use the weapon and think of a way to like remember what happened with Cortana. But they also
Mm.
have to deal with the Banished, who are a group of villains this time around, pretty much led by
Uh-huh.
Eskarum, and they got to go up against any sort of remaining forces of the UNSC within the ring that involves the
Yeah.
banished, and it's kind of like a crazy experience all around. You know, there's something that's kind of cool to go up against, and when you're like a rebel group of sorts. Like we all know that the UNSC is pretty much like this big military group, but for a good while now they've been like scattered around. It seems like they've lost this war, but one being can help bring them back together and reclaim what's theirs.
Hmm.
Yep. And along the way, everyone manages to make it through, as well as make sure that they can stop um, the Banished from taking control entirely of Zeta Halo, which thankfully they do at one point.
So
Although,
that is story wise, like the game,
yep. Well, I will say though that it
and
was kind of like it's kind of like hard to see Master Chief say goodbye to Cortana because you've known that they've had like quite the adventure, even if they had like a
yeah,
very unfortunate moment within the beginning of the Reclaimer saga.
uh-huh.
And like it's 20 years since we've known these characters, and now they're not going to see each other again. Although there is a new Cortana that has one new mission in mind, and that's not to like do the same fucked up shit that the real one did.
Yeah. What a tragedy.
Yep. And thankfully they managed to like get to like stick together, both Master Chief and the weapon. And I know for a fact that there's still quite a lot of things to delve into, such as the fact that Atriox is going to get himself the Endless, and there's a lot to delve into for us to probably expect in the near future. Although I do know for a fact that they said that we're not going to get ourselves a new Halo game for a good while, so perhaps expansions will come in the near future.
I hope it is not like a GTA 5 case, but yeah.
I agree. So yeah, Halo Infinite is a much more human story, and I think they did a good job of it as well. Um, in showcasing the
Would you
sort of
say?
like the fact that everyone's
Oh,
scattered
sorry.
and now they have to like get what's left of them to rebel against the big threat.
Uh-huh.
You can even get a sense of that through the marketing, the trailers, where it's pretty much like one bullet against an entire army, and Master Chief says it's enough. It's a sort of like a good theme of representing that, even though he's a small group, they'll still be able to manage it nonetheless and taking on the threat.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's quite good. I do say so myself. Gameplay wise, it's pretty much Halo. It's a third person shooter affair, or first person shooter, I should say. What am I saying? First person shooter affair. Done up quite well. It's always satisfying to not just shoot enemies, but more so when you're like using the grapnel hook from your arm, swinging around places, going towards enemies, and then smacking them with your gun. I even like it when you're like sneaking up on an enemy and you smack it in the back of their head. That's so satisfying, man. Uh, it's even better when like I kind of get that sort of feeling when I was like when in like the first Halo game. When the grunts are like sleeping in the base that you're invading,
Yeah.
and you get like their very peaceful music, not like lullaby music, but it's like "Perchance to Dream," which is very peaceful. It's very quiet, but sounds very it sounds very atmospheric for Halo.
Yeah.
It's so satisfying to listen to the music while you're like sneaking around and like not shooting grunts, but instead of like smacking them and they die in one hit.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's just
Would
things.
you would you say that Juggernuggets would be happy about it?
Perhaps. In addition
Do
to
you
that,
remember that YouTuber?
yeah, I kind of remember some of it, but not all of it. It's just that there's so many YouTubers that have came and went over the years.
He was like a character that really loved Halo, and he was completely obsessed and a man child, and it always made me have a good laugh.
Yeah, it's just like one of those things that one doesn't remember as much, but when they do remember some of it, it's like good to look back on it because it was a much simpler time, and kind of reminds me of, like the Arbiter and the Chief skits that people put out back then, but they had like the voices of text to speech for their action figures of Arbiter and Master Chief.
Hmm.
Also reminds me of like back then when I used to saw glimpses of Red versus Blue, which I haven't seen much of for a good
Yeah,
while. But the older stuff that I have seen is done up quite well, and it kind of shows just how big the Halo fan base was already.
yeah,
Like it kind of fascinates me how big a fan base can get because nowadays it feels like anything new gets like a very small following, usually DeviantArt stuff. Whereas when a game series comes out, like you pretty much you see merchandise everywhere. Like you get Halo, like you get Master like Halo themed stuff on your Monster Energy drink. You get Master Chief on a bag of Doritos. And
yeah.
looking at photos, I kind of remember like seeing glimpses of like Halo 3 being marketed at my GameStops back then.
Those were other times. We're not living anymore. That present.
Yeah, everything's just all on the internet. It's all digital.
We fell into a rabbit hole.
But thankfully, Halo Infinite's a good way to think about the rabbit hole less and less because it's done up quite well. But apart from all that, I got to also add on to the gameplay. I like the fact that um, it feels like it's like a previous. It's like it feels like it's made by the Bungie people. Because I know that a lot of people don't
Hmm.
like the 343 stuff, but this game feels closer at home with the previous trilogy, where it felt like classic Halo. They knew this quite well, but not just like the writing, but also with the characterization of Master Chief. I remember people saying like, "Oh, like Master Chief, like is kind of like a simp for Cortana," but now here he realizes his mistake and decides to, instead, go with her death and separating himself from her, pretty much.
Yeah.
And also on top of this,
Hmm.
like his like straightforward approach in saving the day. Like I said before, um, the way he pretty much says like one bullet's enough, or one bullet will just do just fine. Like that's the kind of Master Chief we look for. Of course, it's cool for him to say stuff like "a Didac has to be stopped. If you won't do that, then I will." But it's also cool for him to say like the occasional one-liner because in a way, Master Chief is a modern day action hero. No, he's not Duke Nukem. He's not Arnold Schwarzenegger. He's his own guy.
Yeah. He represents his own values.
Indeed. And it also helps with the fact that his voice actor is just top tier quality.
Indeed. Dude, I'm always amazed by Master Chief voices
Yeah.
and parodies. I love him.
Even if you're not a big Halo fan, you gotta like admire the way the character is because like
Yeah.
a lot of times people might think of him as like a bit of like uh sort of like Chuck Norris type of guy, but he's done up quite well if I do say so myself. And I wouldn't mind seeing him
Yeah.
interact with like the more cartoony characters like Mario or Sonic. Hell, I even find it funny that I came up with this sort of like similar to the Marvel Illuminati group called Project Rigby, where it's pretty much red, green, blue, and yellow characters, or like heroes in a way that consist of like red for Mario, green for Master Chief, blue for Sonic, and yellow for Pac Man. But the thing about
Yeah.
Master Chief is that he stands out amongst them all because he's not a cartoony person. He's this real life guy, but that's like what makes him a different character all around. That's sort of like a weird idea I had. But yeah, back to Halo Infinite. It's a
Hmm.
remarkable way to bring people back to the good old days of the previous games. Unfortunately, you got people that are still bitching about it. That's like, oh, it's not like the original trilogy. It's not like Bungie days. But we've we've moved on past from the Bungie days. The only thing we can do now is be as good as them, or if not, be better than the previous games for and Guardians. That
Yeah.
is.
We need to understand our own times I
Or
think people are too stuck in the past and too stuck with a very fake sense of nostalgia that it's not even emancipating type of nostalgia. It's just
it's just like ungratefulness all around.
experience ruining type of nostalgia.
It's just like it's just like the fact that Bungie itself has been great for what it is, but unfortunately, like Bungie isn't around with us as often. But the best thing you could do is at least have writers that know Bungie quite well and can deliver Halo in the same way it has been back then. I mean, obviously, we're
Uh
not
huh.
getting like it's not like the Halo series is turning into it's like having I mean, it's not like the Halo series suddenly has PC games that help you learn first grade math. No, it's just the fact that unfortunately the new company doesn't quite get the spirit as well. Thankfully, they do this time around, mostly because, from what I know, they have the some of the previous writers involved.
Yeah.
It's all about understanding what makes the previous games work and how to implement it in newer stuff to go forward. And I think Halo Infinite does that quite well, better than the Foreign Guardians, if I do say so myself.
Mm-hmm.
I also have to give credit to Microsoft for and 343 Industries for going so hard into improving their game immensely. Now I know for a fact people made memes about Sonic's design in the movie looking quite goddamn ridiculous. The fucking ugly ass design.
That
But
was an epic Hollywood moment.
yeah, very bad. And not because it was like a reboot, but mostly because it just doesn't look right. But more importantly, um, like we had a similar thing with like Halo Infinite from one of the demos that was out. Remember Craig, the brute?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, remember the meme of Craig from the memes where it's like looking at the camera before he gets punched by Master Chief?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
he doesn't look like an
yeah.
Xbox Series X type of model. It looks underdeveloped.
No. Yeah,
Yeah, because of that sort of thing, they went back and made sure that the game looked as polished as possible, and they did a tremendous job. Of course, graphics aren't everything in the game. The gameplay has to be good as well, and of course it is. But they worked their ass off to make sure that Halo Infinite was as presentable as it should be, and they succeeded quite well. Plus, like you look at one of
yeah,
the grunts that you fight, like the graphics are much better looking. They feel much more realistic. I'm not someone that wants my graphics to look realistic and everything, but you got to make sure that it's up with the standards of the hardware that are available. If it was Xbox One or even 360, that'd be acceptable. But Series X is meant to push for a much higher budget, and at first it didn't look like they did, but now they did.
yeah.
You even get to see that from one of the trailers where it shows off the redesigned Brute, who looks more like a Chad compared to the previous one, who looked more like a virgin. Yeah,
It's extremes.
perhaps. If there's one thing I have to complain about the game, it's the fact that the multiplayer, while fun, does feel kind of expensive for some of the suits.
Oh, why does that always happen?
I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe they don't have faith that the game would do as well because like the standards that fans have with the previous stuff. But like, why'd you gotta make stuff so expensive? I mean, at least make some incentive. Like, okay, do certain things to unlock a costume, fine. But come on now, no one's pay too much for like virtual costumes. They're just aesthetic choices. Like, I don't care if it's either something stupid like the cat ears or if it's something that's so blatantly obvious like the Iron Man colors. You shouldn't pay too
Yeah,
much for it. And can you imagine if they
it,
made
it's
you
like,
pay money for the costumes of Mario Odyssey?
mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be frustrating as hell.
um, oh, I just wanted to say that it is just like you said. It feels like fan bases are getting shorter and shorter on people. And if you apply these type of strategies, even as a corporation, you're not looking forward. You're not trying to get new customers. You're just trying to maintain the same people. And people sometimes lose interest. So it feels like it is limiting their own type of audience when you make it so expensive, and the multiplayer, which is probably the funniest part of a game, gets so exclusive, yeah.
Exactly. And it's just a shame that we have to contend with that sort of dealy instead of something that's much more like intriguing all around, or at least worthwhile, I
Mm.
should say. I don't know where the intriguing part came from, but yeah, make it worthwhile. Don't overcharge stuff that's not going to be worthwhile because, like, sure, these costumes are more valuable than NFTs, which are the least valuable thing. In fact, NFTs are as equal par as feces in terms of worthiness. But I don't want to
Yeah,
have the mindset of thinking that buying costumes that are far too expensive in a game that's already expensive as it is would be on par with getting an NFT. Otherwise,
we need we need we need more NFTs.
yeah, to screenshots.
Yeah,
So people, if you have any NFTs you want to send us, like send us the links and we'll screenshot the fuck out of them.
yeah, especially hentai NFTs, please.
Monkey hentai NFTs. But in all seriousness, though, Halo Infinite is a tremendous game all around. It brings us back to the Halo roots we've been hoping to get, but more importantly, it delivers on a remarkable game. And whether it's from like the graphic representation that was lacking in the earlier stuff, or the writing that wasn't as good compared to like as we saw with like Four and Guardians as it was with the original trilogy. A lot of people are definitely going to be happy with this game, unless you're on Reddit and being an unappreciative bitch.
Yeah, it deserves a round of applause.
So yeah, definitely go and get this game if you can, because whether it's like on a physical copy or digital, you're not going to regret um, buying it. It's just like top tier experience all around. Would I love to have gotten it much
Cool.
earlier? Sure. As Miyamoto said, I'd rather a game be delayed than rushed because a delayed game, as long as you take your time and work things out, would be worthwhile. It may not be
Yeah,
100% perfect, like in terms of like what you've been waiting out for, but at least he who waits gets good things. If you were to make a game that's rushed, it's going to be very bad. Look at Sonic 06, for example. So yeah, let this wrap up our episode for today. So
yeah.
thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
See you guys. Happy holidays.
And Happy New Year.
Wait, don't forget to subscribe. If you do, I'll give you a headbutt. That's ogre for thank you.